We're good?
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
make sure.
All right.
That's right, Mr. Chairman, we're waiting for Bob. He had stepped out for just a moment.
Okay.
Apologies. I was. Bob has returned. We're ready when you.
Sorry, gee, I didn't. Oh, you're right. I had a minute or two.
No problem. All right. Well, then I will officially call this meeting to order. And I will listen for a approval of the recap and the minutes from last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve. Go ahead.
Second.
You were first.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Approval of the recap and the minutes from last meeting. So then I'll move into the discussion of our CFO's press conference he did here in Hillsborough. Thank you to those in the committee that were able to make that. And I guess I'll just open the floor here for discussion. And if there's anybody from staff that wants to give opinions or anything that they want to discuss from it, let's talk about our takeaways. Anyone want to go first?
Jake, this is Tom Fessel. I don't know if you wanted me on Friday. Brandon sent out kind of a presentation that we put together based on some of the comments.
Yeah.
We can either, let that stand on its own, or I can go through that and answer any questions, however you'd like to do that.
It would probably be good for you to go through it, since this is recorded, and if people are going to go back and watch us at any point, they didn't get the email or anything. So why don't you go through the presentation for it?
Sure. So for the last couple of weeks, as I think everybody's probably aware, there have been the state CFO has been holding various press conferences in various locations about some initial high-level findings related to various county entities that they have visited. And Hillsborough County was one of those. So he did visit here a couple of weeks ago and had a press conference. Subsequent to that, there was also another press conference, I believe it was last week early, where the governor and the CFO were present. And so we watched those press conferences and basically put together this presentation to try to give some perspective or some context to the comments that were made. I can go through that. And then as you know, if you have any questions along the way, just please let me know. So if we go to the first slide, is that? I don't know how important it is to have it up on the screen, but
I'm trying to figure that out. Give me 1 second.
okay.
Just go ahead. I'll pull up.
Okay. The first slide there, I just wanted to give a little bit of an idea of, we talk about transparency and oversight of government operations. So this is a slide that we've presented to our board before, just to kind of give a sense of what type of oversight what type of oversight or transparency that there is and as it relates to government operations. So this is just meant to show that, we receive a lot of federal and state funding. So we do have auditors that are in here on a pretty regular basis from both the federal side and the state side looking at things. We have 2 internal audit agencies that audit us on a regular basis. That would be the county internal auditor, which is Melinda's shop. But we also have the clerk of the circuit court has an internal audit function. So they also are auditing us on a regular basis. There are annual audit plans that are approved by the board and regular communication back to the board on results of those audits. We also have rating agencies that come in and evaluate us on a regular basis. And anytime we issue debt, the rating agencies will come in and evaluate things and provide an update on our various ratings. So the county, Hillsborough County, is a AAA rated county for our general credit from all three of the rating agencies. And again, they will come in on a fairly regular basis. We have the county attorney's office. So any agreement that's approved by Hillsborough County goes to our board for approval. So our board reviews all agreements for the most part. And then those actually, we work with the county attorney's office and any agreements or other things that programs or anything like that gets approved. We work with the county attorney's office on that. And then, we've got obviously the media that's looking at us on a regular basis. And then the public also has the opportunity to come in during either through our budget process. We have multiple public hearings where the public can come in and weigh in on our budget. And we have other meetings out in the community, public meetings. Our commissioners are out in the community and hold like town halls on a fairly regular basis. So this is just meant to show that, we are being looked at on a very regular basis. The next slide, just wanted to give you, the state is very much focused on general fund services and general fund funding. So that's where the property tax dollars go. In addition to the property tax dollars, there are other revenue sources that go into our general funds. Some sales tax goes in there and various other revenue streams, but property tax is the largest revenue that goes into our general funds. And I just wanted to give you an idea of the types of, I won't go through these individually, but just of the types of services that are funded by the general funds. The biggest ones being our sheriff's office, our fire rescue department. The general funds do support, the parks department, other constitutional officers, the property appraiser, the tax collector. And some of those budgets are budgets that we don't necessarily control. So when you look at the property appraiser and tax collector, the state of Florida Department of Revenue approves their budgets. We might have some limited control on some of the other budgets that are over here on the left side of the slide, but less so than we do on county administrator department budgets. Again, please stop me if you have any questions along.
Tom, we've determined in past meetings that the constitutional officers are out of the scope of this committee. Does everybody agree on that? Or am I thought that we had covered that and that was understood.
I think so.
I'm reaffirming what you're saying there is you guys, and then Rebecca, you guys.
Yes, I understand that.
Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I understand that. I was
Constitutional officers being out of the scope of this committee.
As
At
we,
this point, anyway. There may be a DOGE at some point for the sheriff's office, but that's not us now, or am I misunderstanding that?
Well, and I understood that the DOGE council that came down from Tallahassee, they didn't inspect those entities. Is that correct?
They did not. Now, we early on had some communication with the state because we weren't sure if they were included or not included in some of the early on information requests. So what we were told by the state is that they encouraged them, if they wanted to participate, they could, but that wasn't going to be their focus.
So based on scope, we're not looking at those entities at all. Right?
Correct. But again, just wanted to give you an idea of what the general fund services are. When the CFO was here, when they came down to visit, they some of the information they requested was basically like fiscal year 19 to 25. But it seems like when it's been traveling the state, they've been addressing more of the fiscal year 20 to 25. So we updated some information from what we had previously presented. So when he was here, he indicated that the Hillsborough County's budget has increased close to $860 million from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 25. We agree with that number for our two general funds. But we wanted to just kind of add some, I think the purpose of our presentation is just to add a little bit of context and give you a little bit more detail to back up some of the information that was provided. So this spreadsheet on slide 4 it's a little bit busy, but the intent of this was to show that while the budget has gone up by that much, about 365 million of that amount, or about 42.5% is related to public safety. That would be sheriff, fire rescue, and disaster activities. Another 9% in the area of transportation. You can see that reserves do make up 21% of that increase. The board does have a policy that indicates that they will maintain their general fund reserves between 20 to 25%. That helps us keep our AAA bond rating from the 3 different rating agencies, which allows us, when we go out to the market to borrow funds, to borrow at very favorable rates, typically somewhere between 2 to 4% interest. Right now, in the last number of years, our reserves have been around 23%. And then you can see some of the other areas that have gone up from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 25.
Can I just get a point of clarification? What they had mentioned in the press conference was that they had taken into account growth and public safety as far as increases are concerned. Is that accurate?
He's made that statement. So this is consistent. This shows that that's consistent with what he said. So when the number he threw out for Hillsborough County was, he said that we were, in their opinion, about $278 million higher in our budget than we should be. So they came up with that figure, and he acknowledged that was in taking the fiscal year 20 budget, and it inflates it forward, taking into account population growth, taking into account inflation, and then he said adding what he called a government inefficiency index. And based on that, they didn't present, I guess, information to back up that number specifically, other than it was just basically a projection of the fiscal year 20 budget forward. And so that's why we just wanted to kind of show, okay, we agree with the number, and we just wanted to show where the dollars are invested. Just to give you an idea, and the area of, I think, and a communication that we sent to our board that we provided to you, we have made, I guess, over the last 5 years, in fiscal year 20, I think we would acknowledge that we have some service deficits in some areas. So fire rescue, we have a fire rescue master plan that's been done that shows we're lagging behind on fire stations by about 20 to 25 fire stations where we should be. Over the last 5 years, we've made some headway there. We have some of the increase in the budget has been the addition of 4 new fire stations, about 160 new fire rescue positions. Same thing over in the sheriff's office. And then transportation also is an area that clearly we've got some significant needs for transportation improvements. So we have used some of the dollars to invest in those areas: road resurfacing, intersection improvements, sidewalks, bridge repair and replacement, things like that.
That's all covered under transportation?
Yes. The next slide, slide 5. When the CFO was here, he indicated that Hillsborough County's has added 645 new positions. So what we wanted to do is, again, just add some context to that. We agree with the number, but we also wanted to just kind of break that out a little bit to kind of show you where those positions are. So what this slide shows is basically we've got the sheriff's office, you've got the clerk of the circuit court, some of the other constitutional officers, again, budgets that we don't have a lot of control over. You can see on this slide that kind of the last 3 areas there have been some of that, the 645 includes position additions for those offices. You can see that in the area of fire rescue, we have added 161 new positions over that period of time. That represents a 15.6% increase in the number of fire rescue positions. The important thing here to us is is that population figure. Over the last 5 years, population's gone up about 9%. We've invested in additional fire rescue positions to the tune of increasing those about 16%. So that shows that we're trying to catch up. If you look at in the general fund positions that have been added other than fire rescue, you can see that those positions have gone up about 157 positions, or a little less than 8%, or less than the amount of the percentage in the population increase. Some of those positions include things such as like our parks department. We added like 72 positions there. In code enforcement, 22 positions. In our real estate department, we added 29 positions. Those are positions that we, as the number and the square footage of county facilities increase, we have to be able to maintain our facilities. So we typically will have some additions in the real estate area on an annual basis.
Is it fair to say that the county administrator would be comfortable that these headcount increases have met the need of the growing county, or still way to go, more or less? Because my thoughts are that one could make a thoughtful argument that a certain degree of all these are fixed type employees, and that's in place. And then when you add incrementally, you add, for example, the sheriff's office may add deputies rather than administrative types, and that even though they're only up 6% on average, it could well serve the 9% increase in population. Is that, what's the county's view? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
No, that's fine.
the administrator's view is, look, we need to hire a lot more, or we're kind of where we need to be, or
When we go through every budget
there's too many,
process, our departments have the opportunity to make budget requests, and they do. They always make the amount of requests that come in are significantly more than we can afford to fund. So
I'm shocked to hear that.
so when we are making decisions, we typically, what we try to do is prioritize things like public safety, transportation, maintaining our assets. That's very important to us. The cost of not maintaining your assets over the long haul is much more expensive if you don't maintain them than if you do. So those are the things, equipment replacements, things like that are the things that get the top priority. But again, we're still trying to catch up in fire rescue. We are still way behind in that area.
This is a tough one too, because it's hard to gauge what of the existing workforce is fixed pieces that don't need to increase, another variable, so to speak, that would be, I know just from personal experience I don't think I ever put together a division budget where almost every single cost center didn't ask for an additional headcount or two, even when they had a couple of vacancies. So I would say, well, gee guys, you've had these 2 vacancies for 10 months, and yet you need, that kind of thing.
That's a good point. So one of the things.
I'm sure you've had that experience. I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, we actually have a board policy that states that any position vacancy that's greater than a year is subject to being eliminated.
Oh.
So every year when we go through our budget process, we do look at that. Now, there's some unusual circumstances. Let's say in fire rescue, where they might have a firefighter position that's been vacant greater than a year. We're not going to eliminate that. In some cases, they might just be, when positions come open, they might be filling the wrong positions, not filling the oldest ones first. So that there's certain situations we look at, but we do have a policy, and we do look at that every single year. Every year, we do eliminate positions that have been vacant greater than 1 year.
So you had mentioned that you had little control over the budgets for the constitutional offices. Who does oversee that? Are those done by each of the offices, or how does that work?
If it's a tax collector or the property appraiser, it's the Florida Department of Revenue. And in statute, there are actually Florida statutes that there's a formula in there that calculates what their budgets will be every year.
Is that the sheriff's office as well?
That's not the sheriff's office. We have the ability to, let's say if the sheriff gives us a request to question some of those costs and approve something at a lower level. However, it's in statute that if we do that, the sheriff has the opportunity to go to the state level and to appeal that decision to the Florida, the cabinet at the state of Florida. And you can guess who ends up with what they want. The sheriff will typically end up with what they want. So we have not challenged, not since I've been here in the 23, almost 24 years I've been here, we haven't questioned the sheriff's budget request when they submit it. Having said that, the sheriff has been very good at working with us and understanding. We meet with the sheriff every year before we get into the budget process to find out what their needs are. And they've been very good at working with us and understanding where we are in a particular year as far as what resources are available.
Can I just add one more caveat? You said that they're subject to elimination for the positions vacant over 100 days.
Over a year.
So over 365 days. So what does that process look like? Because there's 78 positions that are vacant over a year. in the
Right, so
county.
we go through the process once a year, and so we will evaluate all those positions, and we might eliminate, I forget how many we eliminated in the process we just went through. It might have been 20 or 30 positions. So we do look at factors such as what, are they funded by the general fund? Are they funded by grants?
What would keep a position vacant over a year and in play?
That's a good question. That's why we question it. We shouldn't have positions that are vacant that long. Sometimes when you go out to market and you are advertising for positions, they're hard to hire positions. And we can go out there and we might get applications in, but when you look at the applications, maybe that's what you're getting back is not going to be able to meet the requirements of the given position. So some of those are just harder to fill. Having said that, some of those should have been filled and they're not, and those are the ones that get eliminated.
Would that be, suppose there is an empty position, somebody hires in February, the guy finds a new job by September, October, and next budget season, it's empty again. Is that comprehend? I mean, or I guess I should ask, have you had success in enforcing, like, look, if the position's open for a year, you lose the position? I imagine that makes you an unpopular guy, but have you had success with that in the?
Oh, we do, yeah.
Budget
Our county administrator is very much all on falls, and that's her approach is if it's been vacant a year, it's gone.
Yeah. And it is reasonable in like a circumstance, because I've seen that happen too, where somebody gets another opportunity and they're gone 8 months later, and you think, oh man, I just got this guy up to speed, and now it's vacant again. Now I can understand a circumstance where you could make an exception there, but otherwise that seems like a good policy. I've had success with that.
We eliminate positions every year.
Success rate is 90 or 100%, or is it a battle every budget year?
It can be a battle, but
Right. So I don't mean to put you
but
on
in
the
the end,
spot.
it's the county
Next year,
administrator
yeah,
that makes a decision. So
Yeah.
we do consider circumstances.
Tom, do we have? Do you want to keep moving through this this PowerPoint, and then maybe because I appreciate the interest in trying to figure out how the hiring process works with all of it. Unfortunately, I don't know what our authority over this is going to be, other than to, ask questions.
Sure. If we go to slide 6, the CFO did not make comments specific to compensation for Hillsborough County. Having said that, when he was at other counties, some of the statements that he made were things such as that over the past 5 years, that increases that have been given to non-public safety employees have been greater than increases that have been given in the private sector. And also made certain statements in certain places that the first responders increases were less than the other employees' increases. So while he did not make a statement like that related to Hillsborough County, we know that a report's going to be coming out shortly, and there's a possibility that there might be something in there related to that. So we just wanted to kind of get ahead of that a little bit and just do the analysis. So we looked at it. And that's what this slide basically shows. It does show that there've been some fairly significant increases given to our through our fire union contracts over the last 5 years, an increase of 42.5%, 8.5% a year on average. Our non-union employees have gotten over the past 5 years an average annual increase of about 3.6%. And the private sector, I was able to find some Bureau of Labor Statistics data that indicate in the private sector that the increases have averaged around 4.7%.
You got that from the Department of Labor?
Bureau of Labor Statistics, yeah, U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. These are some slides that we just trying to add some context. So if this is one we show to our board every year when we go through our budget process, we know we kind of got to a point back where we had the Great Recession back in 2007. At that point, total county positions were 6,600. We currently have 6,200. So we're still 371 positions less than we were in fiscal year 2007, or a decrease of 5.6%. And that's while the population has grown over that period of time by about 30%. If you go to slide 8.
This is positions, not actual headcount. It's
Budgeted positions.
budget positions, okay.
Yep.
I actually have a question on that. Do you, have we shifted then some of the, I mean, that's obviously a long time frame, 2007 to now. Have we shifted those to nonprofits? Have we just done more with less people?
I think we're just doing more with less people. Yeah.
So these
What's
aren't
the
positions
reason-
that necessarily shifted to like the tax collector's office or the supervisor of elections office or something, or pushed onto a nonprofit.
No, these are just county administrator positions. I can't think of a situation where we've asked a nonprofit to do something for us because we've lost positions. Off the top of my head, I can't think of that situation.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
What's the reason for looking at these specific slides, 7, 8, and 9, over the period of 2007 to 25 versus the 2020 to 2025? Like in the previous slides, is there a reason why there's a bigger period we're looking at here?
I think, again, it was just to maybe add a little bit more perspective because, we cover the 20 to 25, 21 to 25 for the 20 to 25. And we just wanted to basically show that we're now, over 15 years from 2007, and we're still less positions than we were back then. And if you go to slide 8, you can see that will actually show that we've been trying to catch up on our first responder positions. So our fire rescue positions have actually increased. They're included in the previous slide, but we've actually increased fire rescue positions by 356 positions, or about 38%, while the population has grown 30%. So again, it just shows that we are prioritizing our fire operations and trying to catch up. And then the last slide basically strips out the fire rescue positions, and that shows that we actually have over 700 less positions now other than fire than we did back in 2007. So a decrease of almost 15% while the population has grown 30%. Slide 10, maybe just a couple things to point out there. It's a little bit busy. This addresses our millage rate and credit ratings. If you look at the bars on the left chart at the top, it shows Temple Terrace, City of Tampa, and Plant City. So their millage rates and what the services that they fund with those millage rates are going to be consistent with the county's unincorporated area millage rate. So we provide the same type of services with that millage as the cities provide with their millage. And what that basically shows is that, Hillsborough County's millage is more than 1 mil less, in some cases 1.5 mils less or 2 mils less than than each of the cities. So that's just an indication. That kind of shows why we're probably struggling a little bit with our fire rescue operations, because they're funded with that unincorporated area millage. And what we've done in each of the last 2 years is we've done what we call a millage swap. So we've got our two general funds, our countywide fund, which covers countywide services, and the unincorporated, which covers those other municipal type services like fire rescue, development services, code enforcement, or unincorporated area parks. And what we've done the last couple of years is we've reduced the countywide millage and just slightly bumped up the unincorporated millage to be able to try to catch up a little bit in the area of fire rescue. They net to zero when we do that. So a citizen that lives in the unincorporated area, their millage is going to be basically flat and not go up. Actually, if you live in a city, your millage from Hillsborough County will have actually gone down the last 2 years. The other thing I wanted to point out here is that we are one of less than 50 counties nationwide that is a AAA credit rating for our general credit rating from all three rating agencies. And that's out of 3,143 counties nationwide.
Tom, question. I just want to make sure, because it says recommended budget in 26. The budget was approved already, right?
Yes, the 26 budget was approved back in September. Yes.
Yeah.
The last few slides kind of address some comments that were made by the CFO that we just wanted to provide you with the information. A comment was made at the governor's press conference, talked about that Hillsborough County has spent millions of dollars on film activities. So it's not incorrect. This basically shows that over the last 5 years, our board has chosen to fund the local film commission, both provide some operating support and also provide some dollars for some subsidies for individual films. So up until fiscal year 23, all of those, all the dollars that were provided were general fund dollars, so property tax funds supported. Over the last couple of years or few years, from 24 on, we have shifted the burden of that over to tourist development tax dollars. So now the general fund is only contributing at less than 10% towards the film activities. Tourist development tax dollars are, if you've got visitors that come into Tampa, they stay at a hotel, that's the 6% tax on that hotel room night, basically, that put it in its simplest terms.
I
think
have
this last meeting that there was no analysis done on any kind of cost benefit analysis, filming funds and having an increase in tourism. I think that there was no analysis done on that delta.
So
I'm aware of.
that's the other thing I want included in the information you have here. I printed out a recent agenda item, which when there is an individual film that's being considered for a subsidy, it goes to the film commissioner who doesn't work for Hillsborough County with a local film commission, provides our commissioners with a letter basically justifying the return on investment for that film. Our commissioners, there's an agreement that goes to our board. That letter is part of that backup for that agenda item. And then our board considers and funds each of these individually with a specific agreement. So I've given you an agenda item.
I wanted to clarify, because we talked about the film money maybe last meeting or the meeting before, because I think there's a lot of highly questionable films being funded in this county. I think that the governor and the state are probably right to point them out too. And one of the things that I found out was that a lot of these get pushed onto the consent agenda, and maybe they haven't been just like discussed or individually voted on, but they're thrown in the consent agenda, and they never really. I mean, the commissioners are approving them. Like, don't get me wrong, but they're kind of just pushed through. I think that this probably needs to be a continued item for us to look at going forward. And one other thing, and we can make a note of it, and maybe you can send this to county staff. I couldn't find where to apply for these film subsidies anywhere I looked. So if you guys could find that for me, I don't know where like there's a form or you just have to know a commissioner or how you get these because they're not like open to the public. And again, most of these are going to people who don't live in Hillsborough County. The companies aren't in Hillsborough County. I don't even know if they film 10% of the, in Hillsborough County. So I think we should be highly critical of these film subsidies. And then, as far as like an action item here, if we could figure out where people go to even apply for these things.
We can
Yep,
find
get that.
we can find that out. It's probably through the local film commission and agency versus Hillsborough County.
Yeah, and I dug through the website
find out.
and everything. I couldn't figure it out.
Yep. Okay. We can find out. On slide 12 and 13, one of the things that was pointed out was that Hillsborough County is spending was spending $950,000 a year on auto allowances. Actually, when we looked at it, it was a little bit more by the end of the year for fiscal year 25. It was a little over $1 million. There was a comment made about lack of transparency in that area. That's why we wanted what we have in your package for today. It shows that we do have a process in place. It's an annual certification process. There's actually an auto allowance policy. It's 6 pages long. There are 3 levels of the auto allowance. It's based on, again, an annual certification process where employees have to justify the mileage that they're claiming for an auto allowance. It has to be approved by department heads. And the reason that we have an auto allowance is generally because if we didn't, and there's somebody that's traveling quite a bit, there'd be an awful lot of documentation that they would be required to submit in order to be reimbursed for individual trips. So this is kind of an efficiency thing from the standpoint of not having to have additional staff to, take a look at all the administrative efforts that would be related with a lot of additional documentation that if they were just doing reimbursements on a trip by trip basis. I did provide on slide 13, just to put things in perspective. We do have about 366 employees that received an auto allowance at some point during the year in fiscal year 25. That would have been comes out to about an average of about $236 per employee, or about 6%, just under 6% of employees receiving an auto allowance. It does represent about 0.13% of the overall personnel budget for Hillsborough County.
So question for you is the auto allowance, is that done by like whatever the federal tax mileage is? What is like, I don't know what it is anymore, 67 cents a mile or something like that?
Correct. So there are various, yes. So if you look at it's called AD10 that we passed out. Jake, I don't know if you have that in front of you, but
I don't.
It's based on that 0.6. It's based on the 67 cents a mile, which, is updated typically every year.
I would just question how many organizations adopt such a policy. I've never heard of this where we give blanket mileage and just, it's in your check every month. That seems outrageous to me, coming from, and I worked for the government for 28 years and I was, inundated with mileage reimbursement requests and authorizations and whatnot. So I'd like this to be looked at if, down the road.
So I actually do want to understand this better then. So are the employees just getting $236 added, or do they have to submit their trips?
There's an annual certification process. So annually they have to submit documentation on what their mileage is estimated to be on a monthly basis. And then it has to be approved by department heads. So
they only do it annually, and then they get what, for a couple $1,000. Is that correct?
There are 3 levels. The first level is 167. The second level, I think, is 200 and some odd dollars. And then the final level is 435.
Well, I think the bigger picture is it's costing the
302.
county $1 million a year. I think that's really what it boils down to. I don't think it's about the ancillary monthly entitlements versus the bigger picture out of the budget.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not personally opposed to paying mileage, on people who are driving their own vehicles for work. Yeah, I actually don't think that that's terrible, but if we're giving it to everybody just based off of the fact that they're a county employee, and are they getting paid to go back and forth to work, or this is like they're driving in their own car?
It's their own private vehicles. You do not get reimbursed for going back and forth to work. No. I don't take the auto allowance, so it's not everybody. So it's just individuals that travel on a regular basis for their county job. There are lots of individuals that claim mileage on a trip-by-trip basis and get reimbursed. So it's not everybody gets the auto allowance. It's I would say the majority of individuals that get reimbursed for their mileage probably are doing the trip-by-trip basis versus the auto allowance. I guess the point being is I'm not advocating for or against the auto allowance, but if we didn't have the auto allowance and those individuals were going on a trip-by-trip basis, there would be a cost. So you'd have to offset that cost against the $1 million. So I don't know what that cost would be. That's, maybe it's
Tom,
800,000.
to clarify, is it like, because these are government positions, is it mandated that we pay for mileage by like the federal government? Because I know the federal government has like mandates on this.
I don't know if there's a mandate. I'm not sure.
The only thing I'm aware of is the FLSA, where you have to pay an employee for all time worked. It makes good sense to reimburse somebody for their personal POV if they're using it to travel for work purposes. I don't think anyone's contesting that. I think we're contesting the process.
Yeah, how do these numbers, who calculates the average monthly miles to determine which category A, B, or C they fall into? Is that something that has oversight? Is it just an estimate?
It's an annual certification process where they have to certify, let's say it's a park employee that says, I'm using my own personal vehicle and I've got to travel to these 5 parks every day. And it's, this many miles from, each day that I travel. That's, 20 days a month. That comes up to X number of miles. That's kind of how a certification process would work. Again, I'm not saying we couldn't take a closer look at this, and there might be some opportunities for some improvement and for tightening things up. Generally, the reason that we have it is to avoid having potentially additional positions. If we've got tens of thousands of individual trip documentation that's created versus the auto allowance, that we probably are going to have some additional administrative staff that are going to be necessary to help process. And we probably will have some requests from certain departments that might want more county vehicles, because if we're not reimbursing employees for traveling and their personal vehicles, then they're probably not going to want to use their personal vehicles for county business.
So I guess like from an action item from this committee's perspective, I don't know, again, sometimes I'll say things and it might just be more work on the staff or something, but I would suggest that maybe we suggest to staff that maybe there's some sort of evaluation done on how maybe other counties do it, and do some sort of comparison, run some sort of analysis on if there's a more efficient way of doing this.
The last comment, the last slide, last comment that we're aware of, there was something that was on a board that was created by the state, that Hillsborough County was spending $572,000 on unconscious bias training. So we looked at that. We were kind of wondering where that came from. And once we dug into it, we think we know where they're looking. So over the past 6 years, we have subscribed to a leadership development training program from Franklin Covey. It provides for online training, and then we can take those training materials and also have some in-person training that we do with those copyrighted materials from Franklin Covey. We spend currently about $100,000 a year on that training. We have about 700 employees a year that take advantage of those courses. All the courses are voluntary. So when it comes to the unconscious bias training, when we looked at the Franklin Covey online courses, one of the 81 courses was unconscious bias. Just again, wanted to kind of put that in perspective. We did, for a period of time, have that course where we took it and we tried to do some in-person classes. 41 employees attended those classes, but we're no longer doing those.
41 out of 3,000.
41 out of 6,200 employees, yes. But again, the thing that we want to just add a little perspective on here is that's one of 81 courses. That's a part of a subscription that we have on an annual basis.
We're not doing that anymore, right?
I mean, the course is still available on an online basis if somebody wants to take it, but it's not mandatory.
I feel like I remember this coming up like years ago, but I can't remember totally. But yeah, okay. Was that the whole presentation?
Yeah, we believe that covers what was brought up in the press conferences. Yes.
Okay. So to continue the conversation, I guess on the press conference, I think my takeaway was probably similar to a lot of other people's, where there's just a large number being thrown at us without total specifics on where they're coming from, and everybody wants to see the specifics in the line items. But where my real frustration comes in is that the budget was passed a few weeks ago. So, we're doing a lot of this work where now we'd have to go back and try to reverse course on budget items that have already been allotted. Is that correct?
The budgets, we have a new budget that was adopted by the board that goes into effect October 1. So if there's some actions that the board would like to take, it could be either done on a mid-year basis, or it could just become part of next year's budget process.
Like for example, if we say this nonprofit should not have funding and this is our suggestion for this fiscal year, they got funding on October 1st, correct? Or they paid out a few months from now? I mean, like, we're going to have to go back. We can't really go back and take the money back from them, can we?
No, I would say you could take the money back. So that usually it's the first 3 months of the year with the budget's there for the nonprofits. And then departments that are assigned to be the county contact for those specific nonprofits, they'll bring agreements back to the board for approval. So some of those agreements, I think some of the agreements went to the board at the last meeting, but usually takes about 3 or 4 months before all of them get back to the board for approval. So if a given agreement hasn't gone back to the board and the budget's there, then there may be an opportunity to just not bring an agreement back.
So from my standpoint on if we're going to be effective at all going into this next year's budget, we've kind of got a short time frame to work with here on giving suggestions to the board on not funding something or changing it. After 3 months, we better start working on year 2027, which isn't out yet, right? I mean, other than that, we're just going to be pointing at things that were spent.
Correct. Yeah, we typically would kick off our budget process for next year in late January. Yep.
Okay. So that's my takeaway from the conference. I would like to, I'm waiting to see what line items they have. My other takeaway is that, just when we eyeballed this from the county level, the total number was like 224 million. Now, obviously, we went through a lot of those things, and some of them were, reasonable and explainable, and some of them are things we probably need to look at more before we can really say they're waste or anything. But I thought it was interesting that the number that just eyeballing all the contracts we got to was like 224 million. They got to 270. So I guess we should take that, in my head, at least, I think we should take that as a goal, of seeing if we could find that to cut, maybe even, again, if it's a budget workshop problem for 2027 and it's for 2027, but to me, that seems like a good baseline number to try to aim for this committee. You can give me, everybody else can chime in on the rest. That's all I have for my opinion on the conference.
I do agree with that.
Having a target is not a bad thing. It's, it would be interesting to see. I don't know how granular we get, but 81 courses, there's no doubt that you need courses for first time supervisors and a lot of employee development stuff. 81 seems like a lot, but I don't know. You guys have a list handy of the courses? I'm just saying because this is something that in the past I've seen where you would be reimbursed for a course up to 90%, but you had to take something directly in your line of responsibility, or a development like first time supervisor. Because there's a big difference between doing a job really well and then supervising 8 people doing that same job. That's a different thing. And seems like a lot of courses, and it gets attention. Unconscious bias, I guess, is probably not, but there may be others there that I don't know, it raises questions. If it's easy to have a list, and that's just something I don't think I saw in the other data. Maybe just a list of the courses, and maybe there's others like unconscious bias, or maybe not, but the thought.
Well, in my opinion, I don't think anyone would contest a leadership development policy.
Right.
I don't think 41 is leadership development, in my opinion. There's 6,000 positions.
Well, all right.
Does anyone else want to chime in at all on thoughts on the press conference or what we gathered from the CFO?
Do we have any idea when this report's coming out? Because it's hard to, really sort of analyze things and compare, the findings here with what they found, because we really don't know what they found other than the placards they held up at the press conference. So do we know when we can expect some sort of deliverable, or is it just wait until you get it?
We were told it would be 60 days after the conclusion of their visit, which was August 12th. So it could be happening within the next week. We just don't know yet.
Okay.
And we've had no further communication other than the follow-up question on cash reserves. So we're waiting, and the minute we get it, we will push it out to you. And so I would anticipate if they're following their schedule, it should be available for discussion at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and during the press conference, he said in the next few weeks. So I don't know how strict they're going to be, but he did say it'll come out in the next few weeks. So.
Yeah, this is Cliff. I just believe that it was more of a grandstand by the CFO at this point, and we need specifics so we can look at them and go point by point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made a few notes along those lines too, Cliff. Like, for example, it'd be nice to know the 81 courses just because there may be others, and maybe not. You don't know, but you can't make a recommendation without that kind of level of granularity. Clearly, the one is maybe that's the only one, maybe not. Other things I had is, maybe on to-do lists or to follow up from this was
Bob,
interesting.
Bob, I have something on the agenda here. We've got a discussion of your items. Are those items that you're going through right now? Or do we want to wait till
This is just no. I'll wait on that. This is just no takeaway from the presentation we just saw. I just made 2 or 3 notes, which would be good to follow up for further level of granularity until we can then say, hey, maybe here is something we really don't need, and that kind of thing. If it's easy, just quickly the list of all the courses. Maybe there's others that are good. Maybe there's not enough. Who knows? your film commission issue, follow up on G. How does that work? Is there a system? How come we can't figure the system out? What's, that kind of thing. Also, I had what would be really valuable is metrics from the last budget cycle just recently concluded on the number of positions that may have been deleted because they were vacant for a year. That's a great policy. Might be really tough to implement that. I'd be curious on if any metrics exist, that kind of thing. And then one last is any kind of idea of a split in by department on what would be fixed versus variable type employees. Now that's going to be impossible in some departments, but in others where you have these field guys going out and that kind of stuff, fixed versus variable is a really viable a measure, and it can add substance either way to too many or too few. So that's, Jake, they're just 4 takeaways I had from this thing this morning. I'd be happy to follow up if you.
I just want to compliment staff on going through what they have at this point to provide this information. If you look at the comments made by the CFO around the state, there was not a lot of meat on the bone as far as specifics. A lot of headline grabbing, and when we get the report, obviously the county staff has spent dozens, if not hundreds of hours putting this together. The state DOGE staff apparently is doing the same thing, and we should be able to get very specific recommendations and findings that we can look at and go from there.
Yeah, I also probably want to state for the record, we're going to basically see what they send us. But there's, as you can tell, not a whole lot of cooperation between what our committee is doing and what their committee is doing. So, going forward, I think our committee's got to make our own suggestions and do our own, we're waiting on them, but, if we want to actually do something and be a useful committee, we might just have to go off on our own, is my takeaway from trying to talk with the state committee on this. So
I think I have plenty of data to do that.
yeah. And that might come in the form of asking the commission to allow us to have data or different processes or something of that nature if we feel like we don't have the resources ready to go in and really dig on some things. We can come up with a list, and then Amanda, we'll get to your items and maybe we can talk about that a bit. But I'm going to keep moving on from the press conference unless anybody else had anything else.
I think we all agree on that.
Okay. All right. Then the discussion on the legal expenses. This is something that I brought up. It was brought to my attention by concerned citizen who's been involved in a long-standing legal battle with the county over zoning. If some of you are familiar with Beer Can Island, the unincorporated zone that's a little island in the middle of the bay. I think they're going on at least 5 years of legal battle over zoning. They asked how much has been spent fighting them on a zoning. So I wanted to, I know I'd emailed this point, and Julia is not there right now, right?
No, I am.
Oh, you are?
Oh, I'm here. Yes, sure. I am here.
Are you off on the side of the camera that I can't see?
It must have hidden me over here on the side, but
Sorry,
here I am.
couldn't see you.
You see me
Sorry, I
now?
couldn't see you. Yeah, it's still cut off. That's okay.
Here, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do, since we're probably gonna chat about this a little bit. I'll let me move so you can actually see me. So you see me over here?
Okay. Yes, I can. Yeah, so the
Brandon
reason I
and
brought
Melinda are over on that side too, Jake, just thought.
Okay. So I brought this up because, again, there's certain lawsuits that have obviously dragged on for a long time. Some people may say they're commission or agenda fights that they decide to pick with certain people. Cliff, maybe you've got insight on this. There are certain lawsuits with county that might take a long time, or law firms that spend a lot of county resources. So I guess, without FOIA requesting everything that's ever been spent with our county attorneys, maybe fill us in a little bit on how we kind of calculate how much we're spending on certain legal expenses for the county.
Well, and let me say that we did, the chair and I did have some back and forth communication, and I wanted to find out some additional information from him, because the concept of litigation expenses, I know it's called legal expenses on here, but what we're really talking about is litigation expenses is incredibly broad, because there's a lot of things besides attorney's fees that go into the idea of litigation expenses. And I wanted to talk to him about that, and I maybe I'll get a little bit more background on the issue that you're discussing as it relates to Beer Can Island. What I can say is procedurally and what the county attorney's office mission is we are the entity that in-house represents Hillsborough County on all its legal matters. And you know, you have some places use an outside law firm. Hillsborough County, for the majority of their legal work, is all in-house. They haven't changed their number of employees for years, and they handle everything on a case-by-case basis with a variety of different sections. And we do have a litigation section that does handle the majority of the litigation. I'm not saying that there aren't times things do have to go to outside counsel for various reasons, because there's specialty or whatever the issue is. But in terms of litigation, like any lawyers, we don't have any independent authority at the county attorney's office level to bring litigation. That has to be directed by our clients. And as part of that determination, they're told the risks and potential issues as it relates to any matter of litigation. And it's ultimately the decision of the Board of County Commissioners as to whether or not we proceed forward with any litigation. Certainly, if there's litigation that comes in, probably if you were really ferret it out, the majority of it is just general personnel injury, some labor and employment. Any organization would have the same level of litigation as it relates to their mission. So those are just kind of run-of-the-mill litigation the county attorney's office has as its mission to defend those litigations, and decisions that are made on settlement are made on a case-by-case basis on a variety of different factors. And there is processes in place that delineate how those things can be settled. So I just wanted to give that level of background, and certainly, Mr. Chair, I hope we can take a little bit of time after this meeting to discuss that further. But in order to be responsive to anything relating to litigation expenses, I would really have to have some additional information as to what we're meeting on that. Like I said, the majority of our cases do not go to outside counsel. So you're not talking about having to spend lawyer money on outside counsel on an hourly basis. And that is handled in-house. So it's not really ferreted out as attorney fees. And again, litigation expenses can include filing fees, depositions, just general expert witnesses, depending on the case. So that's why I wanted to get a little bit of a better understanding of what it is you are looking for, so that I can know how to go find that information out.
Yeah. So really what I'm digging at here is, not if a county vehicle strikes somebody and you guys are in litigation over medical bills or something like that. That's not really what I'm digging at here. These kinds of things happen. What I'm digging at is maybe, again, a county commissioner initiative to kind of fight with a landowner, like in the case with Beer Can Island, over zoning. And now they're 5 years into litigation and back and forth, and county resources and time, and then, staff hourly rates that they're spending fighting what I will just, again, call a political battle more so. These are the kind of case I'm looking at. So I don't know if it'd be great if you had like a ranking, 1 through 10. Here's our top 10 most expensive things that we've spent money on over the past 5 years, and then they've been ongoing. But that's really what I'm digging at, is cases like that.
Jake, this is Cliff. I think that's a great idea. Just as a starting point, give us the top 10 outside counsel cases and what they're, just a quick summary of what they are, how long they've been going on. And then we can take it from there.
Just so I understand, so I'm putting in its proper perspective, you're looking to find out over, say, the last 5 years or some period of time, if there's cases upon which outside counsel was hired to spend on litigation matters, that is the background that you're looking for.
I mean, I would also say that even if it's county staff, if there's a certain case or two or three that are taking up a significant portion of county staff and effort resources to fight, even if it's not going to an outside counsel, I'd still be interested in knowing that, like, hey, our staff had to spend 500 hours this year or 10,000 hours this year doing this one case. I'd be interested in that.
I'll see what I can do to find that level of information out. That may be a little bit harder to kind of look forward to. And I'll talk with our chief of litigation to find out what information we can have. I would like to talk to you a little bit more about Beer Can Island offline, if you don't mind.
Sure. Should be
And so I
fine.
can get a little bit more background on that.
Yeah,
I'm a
like I
land use
said,
lawyer by trade, so like I just want to understand what the issues are there.
I'd be
to give
interested in-
you guys all a background real quick on, and not to give you the whole litigation on that, but we set up this website now to have tips sent to us and everything. And in doing so, sometimes again, people may have reached out to you guys on this committee and everything and just said things like, hey, how much have they spent fighting us in court over the past 5 years? And so I'm bringing it up. That's where it's coming from. So it's coming from public input. It's not just that I'm choosing them randomly.
Oh, no, I understand. I'm
Right,
understanding that.
that's-
Why don't we talk a little bit more about that case offline? But I think I hear the direction that you're looking for, and I will do the best I can to pull all that information together.
Yeah.
This is Cliff Curry. I would like to, not only litigation matters, but any matters referred to outside counsel we're spending significant money on. I think that's something that we need to look at, because our county attorney does a great job with a great staff and great team of legal people of defending the county and doing things. And if we're having outside counsel, that's something I think we can look at, because in the past, there's been significant funds expended that way.
Yeah, and I will say that in my experience, both at the county attorney's office since I've been here and also working in other jurisdictions and in private practice, the county attorney's office, I think you're aptly saying, it does a very good job of keeping all of the expenses down, and as well as very rarely uses outside counsel unless there's a particular reason to do so, either a conflict of some form that develops, or alternatively a specialization that isn't necessarily in-house. But it's a pretty, if I might say myself, a pretty darn good legal office that is within the house within the county.
And I definitely agree with that. My issue, in addition to these overall cases, is, are there cases where state agencies, county agencies, and the county are litigating back and forth against each other that we can look at and say, why is the government litigating against itself?
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think maybe another way to go about it too, Julia, is maybe you could just ask your staff, are there any cases that you felt like could have been ended a long time ago that you don't want to work on anymore, that but you kind of have to keep doing, you have to keep doing for some reason that's outside of their control?
I'm sure you're going to get a lot of responses from that sake.
Since we're not billing by the hour internally, it's definitely a different connotation than if you are.
Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or discussion on those? That hopefully that explained what we were looking for here with the rest of the committee.
There's one small thing, Jake. If I live adjacent to Beer Can Island and Apollo Beach, I'd love to be a part of that offline conversation too. I've been there many times. Just curious. That's all right.
I think you can just hang out and we'll
Yeah.
Well,
chat.
we wouldn't be, no, sorry, now I'm going to do the lawyer thing. We wouldn't be able to have that conversation with the two of you.
Oh, because there's two of us. Oh, all right. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Forget it. You can tell me.
No, I can talk to you as well offline.
I don't want to complicate this. Sorry.
All right. Unless anybody else has anything on the legal discussion. Well, actually, Julia, is there anything else that, while we're on the topic of legal expenses, that maybe this committee should be looking at that we're not?
Now that we've had this conversation, I'm happy to go back and talk to some of the folks in the county attorney's office and see what those might be.
Okay. All right. So let's, Brandon, if you want to make sure that this gets stuck on the next agenda, the kind of a continuation of this discussion, an update on this discussion. Okay. All right, so I'll move on. Amanda, I know you had some things you wanted to discuss, so we'll move into your items.
Okay. Yeah, I had just made this suggestion, it's my understanding that the purpose of this committee is to advise the board of county commissioners as far as it pertains to the Florida DOGE process. And, since we don't have their deliverable yet or their findings of over and above, the summary provided at the press conference, I thought it might be beneficial to, invite the commissioners to either attend one of our meetings or meet with them to determine if there's anything we can do in the interim to add value and, not just sit here and wait for the governor's office to find their report. So that was my suggestion.
It's the committee's pleasure how you'd like to proceed. I would suggest it'd probably be more advantageous to facilitate a meeting with them on their grounds and perhaps at a board meeting where have that conversation, getting them here. Plus, you got sunshine and you got other issues at play. So probably better in a more formalized setting. I think it depends on the time frame. I mean, if we're following what the state said they were going to do in terms of providing the report, you may very well have that report at the next meeting.
Right.
So perhaps it's one of those where you wait and see what comes. And in the meantime, we collect the data you asked for to now. But it's completely the pleasure of the committee how you want to proceed. But that's just something to consider.
Okay.
Amanda, did you have other items you want to discuss, like that were specific expenses?
Not with me today, no.
Okay. Yeah, I'll refer back to the other comments I made earlier. Like, if the state is going to come back with this report before our next meeting, then okay, let's see what they say and see how to proceed. And if it's not detailed enough, if it's not to our liking, if we think there's more, then I think we should continue the discussion of how to expand our ability to actually be an effective committee. So, all right. Amanda, unless you have anything else, I'll move on to Bob's items.
Nope, go ahead.
Okay. Along the lines, Jacob, what you and Brandon were just saying is, I kind of focused on looking in the resources we had in areas that I didn't think were covered as thoroughly by the state. For example, DEI, they seem to have everything there and we can piggyback or then even pursue further when we get their report. But I looked at fire rescue because that's a big area, economic development, affordable housing and homeless services, just kind of to focus because this is a ponderously enormous database we have. So I just picked a few projects at random. And I thought if we're government efficiency, it'd be wonderful to know how we've done on projects that were recently completed. So I think I sent an email that with 4 or 5 in those areas that I had read the contracts and gone through and that were just recently completed. And I'm certain there's some sort of post audit that either a department would do or Melinda, your internal audit would do, like, for example, well, let me start with some happy news. Fire rescue, I read a few of those contracts and one contract was just adjacent to me and I sent it in the email, but I neglected to show the copy. The fire rescue boat in South County is moored at Land's End Marina, which is, I know right where it is. And I actually have a picture of there is the boat. It's a reasonable rate. And I think here's an example of a considerable success. I just thought on that email, I meant to attach on the bottom a picture of the boat in the slip right out in front of Circles, if anybody is familiar with that. So I thought, hey, there we go. And it seems like that's their, standard rate. So fire, and then 1 or 2, we also got a new, Apollo Beach has a new fire station right on 41. So I was interested in that. But some of the other projects say were like, there are metrics within the contract. Like I read a number of in affordable housing and homeless services. And when I looked through those projects, now this is again, I read 8 or 10 of them, maybe a little less. Read through the whole contracts, although after the first 2 or 3, the boilerplate I did slip over because there's like 15 pages in there that are the same in every one. I understand that. And I'd like to understand the metrics. There's a lot of reporting requirements in, like, for example, one of the ones I mentioned had, 6 different nonprofit agencies and had numerical targets for emergency homeless mitigation. And some were only 6 or 8 people and others were 200 people. I was vaguely familiar with 1 or 2 of the agencies, but I thought, if you look down at the contract, there's really very meticulous reporting requirements. And I thought it would be interesting to not reinvent the wheel, but to go through, see how successful, how efficient have we been in that area? And is it something that's productive to go outside with, nonprofits? In this case, a number of them were nonprofits and a couple of church related. And how have we done with mitigating the emergency homeless situation in this one particular contract that I mentioned there? And I think that data already exists to some extent. And I was thinking I would be willing to take the lead on contacting the department. In this case, it's affordable housing, and say, gee, can we see the metrics? How did it work? Has it been successful? Do we use the same ones every time? Are these a systematic thing? It's hard for me to imagine whether they have a systematic thing or it's more of a situational thing where the FDA funds, or the Housing and Urban Development, in this case, funded some considerable part of it. And then it's, now we have to go do something. We got this money, let's go do it. Or is it a more systematic? And it's hard to see that. And I'd like to see metrics to see if we're being successful or if it's money well spent or not. So I thought drilling down into a number of these would be worthwhile to measure government efficiency. And I could work with either Melinda in internal audit or the department, through, the contact person is written in the contract. These are ponderously long contracts, but
Does staff have any opinions, comments on that?
yeah. And I'm looking for feedback, or the easiest way to do it. I suspect that I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I suspect somebody's already done this someplace, or a large part of it, or maybe not, and it exists. It's just that once you have metrics, then we can thoughtfully say, gee, this might not be such a good area to spend quite so much, or in this manner, or not. And metrics would help a great deal.
I would just offer, I think it goes along the lines of what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
In terms of waiting to see what the state report comes, how that reads, the committee's desire to engage on that, and how they engage on it. And then if the committee wishes to ask the board for further guidance or clarification on where they would like you to go, I think that might be the best time to bring that up. And just, because again, the committee needs to be agreeing on where it wants to go, and the board needs to be in alignment with that. So it might be one of those where it's advantageous to get that direction from the board first before an individual member starts moving into interviewing and going deeper into the departments. Again, so long as the board is comfortable, and that's where the committee wants to go.
Good thought. I see it though as that's clearly our remit, government efficiency, and I don't know that we necessarily would have to specifically go. I mean, I'm happy to do that, and that may be a wise thing. I'm not saying it's not, but it's clearly our remit. And when you can measure something, then you know something about it. A lot of times it's hard for us to say, gee, this is not money well spent, when, some of it might be. But if you have metrics where, gee, we spent all this money, how much per homeless person did it take to get them emergency housed through one versus the other mechanism? And I think that the department probably is into focusing on that same thing, and it's not reinventing the wheel. And I think it's within our remit. And I'm happy to wait, but here we are. Time is wasting. I'm kind of interested to get into this. And if we have, admittedly, we've got to wait for the state. Certainly, one of the reasons I focused on these areas in the contracts database was because other areas seem to be thoroughly covered by the state. Like, I don't know that we have anything more to add on the DEI issue other than what that state asked for. And then, they come out with something and then maybe we go to a lower level of granularity or not, depending on what they say, but they seem to have that covered. So I thought, well, gee, fire rescue and economic development, affordable housing are areas that I didn't see focused as much, and where we can add value is what I'm thinking.
And I wasn't making any commentary on the context or the substance of what you were seeking to look into. I was sticking more to the process of state's report. Remember, they asked for volumes of data.
Fair enough.
Including those things that weren't necessarily discussed when they were doing the in-person visit. So we don't know what that report's going to look like. We heard the press conference, a bit of a preview of that. So we're waiting for that too. And so my only suggestion was, from a process standpoint, is to, again, we were told it would be 60 days. That would be next week. Comes, then, and then take it from there. And if you get to November and the report's not here, then the committee can make that, direction of, we want to go talk to the board now. We don't have the report. We have other things that we would like to pursue and get the board's blessing to go in that direction. And if that's the committee's pleasure. But again, it needs to be the committee that also makes that recommendation that this is how we would like to proceed. And that's probably a larger discussion amongst the committee when that time comes. So that was my only commentary.
Well, good thought. And how about if we don't do anything for a week and see if we get this state report? But in the meantime, I'm just thinking, like, Melinda is here, and I'm certain that part of I know most of it's probably financial controls, but you must have some effectiveness internal audits.
Well, yeah, and that's where I can probably provide some clarity. Our office works very closely with the clerk's county audit department, and sort of, a lot of times we'll be asked, well, what's the difference between the two of you? And truly they focus a little bit more on the financial related activities. You're talking about your contracts, cash counts, things of that nature, grants. Where we are focused more on the process improvement, the efficiency, effectiveness. So we, again, work very closely with them. And so, like, some of the things that you're actually bringing up, and I guess too, I'll just say, we have a very thorough risk assessment process that really happens all year long. Like, even me here sitting in this meeting, I'm taking note of the discussions that are being had. I watch all the board meetings, attend, agenda review, a whole array of things all throughout the year. And then we kind of get together, myself and the clerk's auditor, and kind of go through and say, what are those real high risk areas that we need to consider to place on our plan for the following year? So we just completed that process, and the board actually approved our plan on September 17th. And then Heidi Penner, the clerk's auditor, hers is going to be approved shortly. And so some of the things that are being brought up, I think will be touched on in those plans. If you want to take a look at those, specifically, we're planning somewhat of a collaboration between our two offices to look at economic development. The film stuff, that's not something that's specifically listed on the plan, but some of the, like, the nonprofit stuff and, looking at some of the grants within that department. I know that she also has some projects related to looking at some of the contracts that have been completed and some of the efficiency things. So I think some of the things that are being brought up are included on those plans. And I mean, in terms of us, in order for us to take on anything in addition that's material in nature, that does require the board's approval, because they've just approved our plan, and it's very much that's reviewed by our audit committee, that we're required to report to quarterly. So so that's
mostly financial. I just thought there may be some like that. I wanted this. And also, Brandon, I don't mean to disrupt any operating department or add to wherever things don't exist. I hesitate to make new work. I don't want to do that, but I got to think that, like, for example, on each one of these contracts, there's a couple people. In this case, the one I referred to, the emergency solutions to a grant, is Brenda Brackens and Nicole Gilbert, and they have phone numbers right in the thing. And I am certain that one of them, or somebody who reports to them, gets the reporting that's required every quarter. And, that might be worthwhile. And also this department, they probably see that there are maybe good ways to do things and not so good. And they may be kind of constrained by procedure or past procedures or something that comes down from another government entity that maybe isn't as effective. And they may already know, gee, it's way better when we do this rather than this, and that's more effective. And then when you have some metrics there, they may already have that. And that's why it'd be worth inquiring with and I would always go through, I don't want to, that's why I sent this out to everybody to make sure that kind of a post-audit function can give us some metrics. Gee, what really works and not, and I don't have a preconceived notion of what it'll tell us. But as I say, when you can measure something and there's a lot of measurements written in I read 4 or 5 of these now, a lot of reporting requirements from these other entities. The other thing that brings to question is it looks like the required administration seems to be so heavy. Like, for example, in this one, it's just 6.9% administration. There's a separate nonprofit that does the administration for then the 6 other nonprofits. But there's such a quarterly requirement that I'm certain that each of these 6 nonprofits has to have somebody who's doing the reports, putting the report together for that reporting. And then, so there is administration embedded in there, as well as the 6.9% administration that we pay this other entity, as well as somebody here probably has to read stuff. And, the appearance is it may be a lot of administration, maybe not, but I'd like to get metrics before I say something about that. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. And I find, peeling the onion back in the details takes a long time. And so I'm anxious to get started. That's my thought. I don't know.
Any other?
Yeah, I'm not into, I think Bob
Amanda.
got a great idea there. What's the timing? How long will it take for us to schedule a conference or meeting with the commission? Because if it's going to be 30 or 60 days out in order to schedule that, I think we ought to go ahead and get it on the calendar one way or the other, whether we're going to have the actual information to discuss or the fact that we don't have it.
Right. I think we would need to talk with the board about the best way to do this, whether it's just a presentation on the regular agenda by the committee through the chair, or if there's another way that they'd like to pursue that. So happy to have a conversation with the chair of the board and find out, how they would wish to proceed in having that conversation.
It seems to me that it's in our remit. I mean, Jake, it's government efficiency. That's
my
exactly
opinion.
what we're trying to measure.
My opinion on this stuff so far is that the commissioners are waiting on the state report. If you ask them today, can we come talk to you? They'll say we're waiting on the state report. But to your point, 30, 60 days out, we should have a report. And if there's additional resources that we want, authority that we want, any of that kind of stuff, I do think it's going to be in a form of a request that we're going to have to go in front of a commission meeting to do. Or if we want to back up the state's claim and say, hey, the state was right about all of these items, and we should force ourselves in front of the commission at the next public meeting that's available to us after that committee, after we've received the report and after we've evaluated it and we want to make that decision. I think we should do that sooner rather than later. I think that the best course of action is to go in front of the commission at the public meeting that is after we actually receive a report. If that makes sense.
I agree.
All right. Well, we can hold off if.
From my understanding, they basically, the commissioners are going to tell us it's your committee, do with it what you want, good or bad. That's what they've trusted us to do. So I think that when is the meeting in November? Do they have a meeting in November?
Yes, the meeting in November is Wednesday, the 5th. And your next meeting of this committee is Tuesday, the 4th. So they have
Okay.
a regular meeting on Wednesday, the 5th, and then their December meeting is Wednesday, the 17th.
Okay, so what I would say then is that if our meeting is the 4th of November, part of this conversation should be, what are we going to go in front of them on the 5th and say to them? Because if, again, that's like almost a whole month at this point away. Hopefully we have a state report to discuss. If we do have a state report to discuss, that will be the vast majority of the conversation in this meeting. And then, I would kind of plan on bringing our findings, our desires, our wishes, and what we'd like to do the rest of the time with this committee to them publicly during a report on the 5th. Does that make sense to everybody?
What time is the meeting on the 5th?
Starts at 9 a.m.
Okay.
If we have a report to bring in front of the commission, we're put on the agenda like towards the beginning, right? Is that correct?
I would need to check and find out where it would fit, but the meetings have been running relatively fast. And so I wouldn't anticipate a long wait. At the beginning of the meetings are typically opening proclamations, commendations, and then moving into the agenda. So I don't really think it would be difficult to get in there early.
Okay. Yeah. My, again, additional thought here, what I mentioned before is that if we're looking at budget for 2026, we need to do this sooner rather than later, or else, we're going to be 2-3 months down the line and they're going to say, sorry, we've already doled out all this money to all these places that you don't think we should have. So I think this board should plan on doing getting a presentation together for the 5th. And not a full presentation, but at least a bullet point of things you want to talk about.
Direction we want to go then, as you're saying, like
What's that?
remit, summarizing like where we want to pursue further, or direction we want to go, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Get
I would
approval
imagine.
before we
I
actually
would
dig into
imagine.
details.
Yeah, I would look at next meeting. If we're looking at November 4th, we have a report from the state in front of us, hopefully, and we say we agree with all of these. Maybe we disagree with some of them. Here's all the things we agree with. We really think you should do something about this, or not do something about this, and then move into, hey, here's some other things we really want to do as a committee. To do those things, this is what we're asking for. If we have asks, like we want to use something, or we request a certain staff member to help us with something like we're talking about earlier, all of the things that we're trying to request, and put all those things together and kind of bullet point where we're at and what we're looking to do now that the state report is out, and kind of give feedback to the commissioners on where we are and if we agree with the state or not. And does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yes, I actually think it's already our remit, but I'm happy to go with the consensus. Yeah. I
I'm good with
have
that.
this whole database. I just want to dig into these details. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Cliff, you have something for us? I see you lighting up.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll move us into old business then. I asked for old business to be on here because I wanted to hear from staff on any of the things that we discussed over the past few meetings. I know, in particular, we had talked about like overlapping subscriptions, things like that. And I know that it was discussed that was going to be looked at over the last month or so. I just wanted to get any updates on any of the things that we've discussed in this committee so far, and if staff has gone back and has any updates for us.
Jake, on the subscriptions, I think you brought up an interesting point. There is a technology committee that meets to receive technology items and get them approved. what we're asking for is to also bring in subscriptions at the county level that might have multiple seekers. In other words, if multiple people are requiring it, then bring them back in. So that has begun, and we're looking at sort of incorporating that into that technology process. Now, a lot of them may not be technology, but it might still be a subscription. So we're trying to figure out how best to do that. But to the extent that the subscription might be asked for multiple departments, we're going to take a look and see if there's maybe an economy of scale or some sort of oversight on those, depending on the dollars as well. So,
Is any timeline on that?
I don't have one just yet. We're still trying to figure out how they're actually brought up into the procurement cycle. So we're going to have a conversation about maybe a flag, and maybe that would be a flag in the procurement system, or we're looking for some guidance on that.
Guidance from me, or
No. Internally, and this from a system side,
Okay.
where the flag. No. I think you've already identified that there might be an opportunity.
okay. Is there any other old business, any updates from staff on anything else that we've discussed that we haven't gone over?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, then I'll move into new business. Does anybody have any new business they wanted to go over before I go into one item I have?
Well, we've covered
Okay.
the one I have, so you can go ahead. Yeah, I think you're up.
Okay. If you
We've already
guys,
covered. So it's-
so I think this has happened since in between this meeting and our last meeting, but I had staff redo the website a little bit so that now if you go to the DOGE Liaison Committee website on Hillsborough County site, it is a nice layout, and there's now a link for a tip section and to give us any leads or anything that anybody wants to give. I don't know, Brandon, have we had any inquiries at all on it, or anybody else that's calling or commenting? Or maybe we're gonna get into that in public comment.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. I'd like to see if Hillsborough County, like social media department, can post that so that there's some awareness from the county that, hey, people leave comments on the Facebook, post about the DOGE committee and stuff like that. But I'd like to see if the county can just post something that says, hey, we've got this tip line, essentially, and here's the site to do it.
I'll check.
Okay. That's really all I had. And then again, if for anybody on this committee, if people are asking you, put them to that site and send them that link. And I think everybody has the link, right? And I think I asked for a shorter URL, so it was easy. It's like /DOGE committee, right?
I believe so, but I'll double check on that too. Let me check on that.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Any other new business?
I did have a point of clarification to see if this is available data. If there is like a matrix that determines which positions are population driven. Obviously, we know that police and fire are population driven. More people, more policing. In an HR department, for every 100 employees, you usually have one HR person. Do we have anything that identifies a ratio as far as what moves when the population grows? We can have that as some sort of litmus test.
Well, we were talking about that earlier. That might be along the lines of what position are so-called fixed or structural expenses for a department and what are variable, like increase with activity, number of field service people, or that kind of stuff. Boy, that might be tough. If you have something like that in the budget analysis, that would be, is that along the same lines?
Right. It probably
Rebecca?
is, I imagine.
Because that's
Around forever.
a lower level granular way to look at head count, you know, in your presentation. Now, that's a tough number to get, but or they're tough to get.
Yeah, I don't know that we have anything like that right now. When we go through an annual budget process, we do have forms that are filled out by departments when they're making a budget request. Those forms would be for requesting any new positions, any new operating budget. It requires them to justify, you know, why they need the position. That could be population driven. It might be, like, for instance, in the real estate department, their typical one every year is to say, you know, we've got 200,000 more square feet of space to take care of because we've got new facilities that came online. So, well, it's not directly related to population. There is a metric that suggests that, you know, now we need to have, you know, new maintenance staff on board to do something like that. So those forms require that the departments justify why they're asking for the resources that they're asking for. But I don't know that we have anything specific that says, you know, a matrix that says you need an additional position for this because the population grew this much. We just kind of do it in a different way. Population growth could be the reason.
So that's what I wanted to kind of get into the weeds on, as far as making sure that our ratios are on point. And then
we can provide what we call them decision units. And when a department submits a decision unit, it's a very specific form. So we need resources for X, and here's what we need. We can provide that form, and you can, you know, for you to review.
Okay. And then I'm just curious if you guys have any leadership development policy internal to the organization, how you develop supervisors or managers, directors, anything like that.
I can get with our HR director on that.
Yeah, and I don't want to create more work, but I feel, you know, without those items, it's tough to make any kind of informed recommendation.
So question to staff, is it possible to craft some sort of like bracketed column list where, like, hey, these departments tend to grow by population and like these tend to be fixed, like even if it's not super specific to every position that the county has, but maybe on a broader sense at least?
I could do that.
Okay. You think that'll help, Rebecca?
I do. Yes.
And
Okay.
yeah, I think that might, and also if we have an idea of the open positions for a year that were deleted in the last planning cycle, even though they're only planned positions, they're not actual dollars, that would be interesting.
Yeah, well, we have the data from, I presume,
Yeah.
24, which was 78. So what does it look like this year? They were removed or not?
Yeah, I don't know. Most of what I've seen is actual head count. Not changes in positions. I haven't seen it. It probably is someplace I don't, you know, but that's that's
Well,
good.
the concern from, I would say, the taxpayers would be that it's padding funding.
Yeah.
That's the concern. We just have to
That's right.
disprove that.
Yeah, that's right. And aside from those headcount things, the only two action I've got is something on the film commission, directions, strategies, how they operate, or is it catch as catch can, or, and then the 81 courses for training. If it's something that exists, it must exist somewhere. No new work, just other than unconscious bias there. Other courses there.
I was just looking on the Hillsborough County sites. It just showed 62 job openings. Are all open job positions listed on there, or do we have some that are just like in the background and they could be put up on there?
That should be all of them.
Should have all the constitutional.
Those that are under open recruitment, yes, that's where they would be listed.
Right. Yeah. there could be positions that are listed that they're going to be listed all the time, like water plant operator. We can't fill all those. We have trouble filling those. So while that position's out there and it shows as one of 62, there might be 10 vacant positions that are related to that one position that's advertised.
Gotcha.
You really
Okay.
can't correlate
Concern is
vacancies
If
with.
it's open
list.
for that long, it's tough to justify needing it. If we've operated it for an entire year without it, it's tough to say, oh yeah, we do need it.
Well, some are just on constant recruitment because we have trouble.
You might look at the turnover as well.
Yeah.
You might in that calculation look at turnover just to get a sense, because they come and go. Right? Because
So we're talking about,
Yeah, that's
no,
even like with the fire rescue positions. I mean, we've got probably 50 firefighters that retire every year.
and
So
I'm
we're
sure they're
constantly
filled within a
bringing in
year.
new crews
And I mean, if they're filled, then nobody's contesting that. We're talking about the ones that are, some are over 1,000 days vacant. So it's just tough to understand.
yeah, we shouldn't have those, but yeah. Again, in some cases, it's departments aren't administratively doing what they should do, which is fill the oldest one first. We run across those situations.
Okay. Any other new business anyone wants to bring up? Okay. Do we have any public comment? Then I'll open up for public comment if we have. I don't know if anybody else is in there that's I can't see on the screen, or anybody here is online for public comment. And Brandon, you said nobody had sent any emails or phone calls or anything from public comment?
No.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order here? Okay, so do we have the date for our next meeting is going to be November 4th, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
10 a.m.?
Correct.
Okay. Does that work for everybody on the committee? Hopefully.
For me.
All right.
Okay.
And is the tech working okay? Can I ask that from y'all's perspective? Because if it does, that's great. If there's a problem, we also need to know that, because from time to time, you may not be able to make it. We want to make sure it's effective. Are you hearing and seeing everything okay?
It works for
Yeah,
me.
this is Cliff. It's working fine.
I wasn't expecting to be away this week. Here we are.
That's where the tech comes in handy. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, well then I will entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, well, meeting is closed. Julia, I'll stay on for a minute if you want to talk a little bit more.
Sure. If we could just give a couple minutes for the other commissioners or the board members to leave, so we don't have a sunshine issue.
Sure.
Okay, I'm off.
to say goodbye.
Have a great week.
My job is to keep that part of it okay.
Anyway. I just need 2-3 minutes.
Or if there's a way for me to.
Just ask.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank